All right, welcome back, everybody, to another episode of Cellar Dwellers Podcast. One second, I didn't plug in my microphone. I just forgot.
Cut.
Huh?
I said cut.
Cut. Editor, cut the footage, please. Welcome back, everybody, to the Cellar Dwellers Podcast. You get myself and Christian, as always. And today we are discussing Evil Dead. No, wait.
No.
Knock at the Cabin.
Knock at the cabin.
M. Night Shyamalan movie. My background today is a bit tongue-in-cheek. It's the cabin from the Evil Dead. You can see the delta right here. Christian, your background today?
For the WWE fans out there, a guy getting Bautista bombed. I don't know who that is. It looks like one of the Hardy brothers, but
Dude, are you kidding me? That's Edge.
oh, that is Edge, really?
Yeah.
Okay. It's a small screen. It looks like dark, like black hair.
No, that's Edge for sure on the old SmackDown set.
But yeah, a bit tongue in cheek, I guess. But I thought I'd put the best actor of this film in my background because
Yes,
Bautista killed it in this role.
by far best actor. I think a lot of this podcast today is going to be themes of the movie rather than the movie itself. So like heavy spoiler warning in general. First of all, I thought the movie as a whole was pretty fine. Like I enjoyed it a lot. Basically, the plot is that there is a couple, Eric and Andrew, which was really distracting to me for some reason, but that's a personal problem. And their adopted daughter, Wen, they're on vacation of some sort at this cabin in the middle of the woods, very secluded. And these four people, it's Leonard, Adrian, Redmond, and Sabrina, come by, tie them up, and say, you have to choose which one of you three you sacrifice, or else the world is going to end. And that is like the most bare bones plot that I can give. I don't want to like spoil the plot right off the bat, because like a lot of that we'll just get into as we discuss it. I think that there's a lot of like underlying themes and ideas that we can discuss. I have a lot of notes. I know Christian has a lot of things to say about it. But overall, like, Christian, what did you think of the movie as a film? Not necessarily thematics wise yet.
I thoroughly enjoyed it. And again, as I said after the movie, it might be just recency bias for me, but I thought it was one of M. Night Shyamalan's like top films, seriously, that I've seen. Because I think just as you said, such a simplistic plot, as many of you've heard that I've discussed here. Andrew knows this for sure, but if you just have a simple plot and you keep me entertained and keep me glued to the film, I'm gonna say good things about it.
That's
That's
true.
really all you have to sell me on.
Yeah, you do that.
Of course, I like thinking, not that's not to say I don't like simplistic, spoon-fed, easy, simple plots, but just an intriguing type of movie. And I think from the beginning, the thing I loved most about this movie was just the tone of it and the edge of your seat. Like, you know what I mean? You're kind of, what the hell is going to happen next? What's like, because the thing me and Andrew talked about before this was, like a lot of M. Night Shyamalan's other movies, you're waiting for the big twist, the big,
That's what he's become known for.
what's going to be the real plot here? What this isn't, nothing's as it seems with any of his movies, but this definitely was different. And so I think that anticipation, you're waiting to see, you're like, are these four people just messing with these two guys? Like, are they just screwing with them? Are they part of some cult? As I think the guy Eric sort of seems to think that they are, kind of targeting.
Yeah, like a shared delusion, I think they mentioned at one point.
And you think he's kind of like paranoid because he has an incident with, ironically, the guy Redmond, as you'll see, that attacked him in a bar because he's gay. So he thinks they're just targeting them because they're gay. And so you're kind of like questioning in the beginning, like, man, is this for real, or are they just actually targeting them? But it just, some of the shots as the movie goes on, like that whole scene with the planes just coming out of the sky is like, oh my god, like, just, it was just crazy. Like, looked very real
Yeah.
terms of the cinematography and how, the special effects and everything, it was just definitely top notch. I mean, it looked super, super real. And as all these crazy events start happening, you're like, oh, these guys are legit. And then, um, you know, they start going sort of one by one. It's just,
They sacrifice themselves.
yeah, it's, I don't know. I was intrigued the entire time. And I think, the character of Leonard played by Bautista he definitely stole the show, I think, out of all the characters, for sure.
100%. No question.
Coming from looking at Dave Bautista, in his roles in other films, as Drax in Guardians of the Galaxy, like he never really took him serious. He was just kind of the brawn and tough guy in those movies, and
Yeah.
was just making those jokes and stuff like that. So no one really took him serious. But man, in this movie, he just was such a charismatic, like deep, well thought out, well articulated, well mannered individual, and something, totally different than I think who he is as a person, and just played a completely different type of role. And I think just nailed it, and definitely stole the show. But like I said, I thoroughly enjoyed this movie. And I think he's been on a good run here, with Old and now this. Definitely better than The Last Airbender. So I think he's made up for some of his past
It
flops.
was he made a Last Airbender movie?
Yeah,
Weird, never heard of it. Didn't know that.
that was my overall general thoughts, really.
To that, I think you made a lot of really good points, and a lot of it we probably like 99% of it we really agree on. Dave Bautista, I mean, I've heard that he said recently that he wanted to move away from roles like Drax, where it's more of like the comedic relief, the muscle roles. He wants to do more of like what he did with obviously Knock at the Cabin, Dune, those kind of things, the more serious, dramatic roles. And honestly, when you look at it, I think he's probably one of, if not the best wrestler turned actor, turned Hollywood actor. He's always the most pleasurable to watch on screen. I mean, John Cena as Peacemaker was really cool, but again, that's very, I feel like that role wasn't as nuanced as something like Leonard was in
Right.
this film.
Two other examples, like John Cena and The Rock, are like the two other big, WWE
Yeah.
actors. Like they're sort of both suffer from kind of being typecast as
Well,
kind
The
of.
Rock plays himself in every movie.
Exactly. The Rock plays literally himself, and there's absolutely no range or no difference. You can watch all his films; he's all the same. And kind of the same with John Cena. As much as I love him, as a wrestler, and I think he's a very good actor, but he kind of, in a way, sort of plays himself too, like the goofy, like,
Yeah,
uh,
like cheesy comedies, rom-coms.
yeah, in the same, kind of has that tough guy, edge to him as well.
Yeah, totally.
But Batista here, like, if you were to tell me, 3 years ago Batista would play this type of serious role in this type of movie, I would have believed you, but I definitely would have thought like it was not going to be that great. And
Yeah, like he might be a supporting character or something.
but Mike, like, I think this movie is just going to set him up for so many great future projects, and I think he's going to excel in it because he's a very good actor.
I hope so. I mean, to me, the dullest parts of the movie were the scenes that he wasn't in. Because I mean, his character was just so not cool, but sort of unique in that the four, let's call them doomsayers, most of the time were very sympathetic towards Eric and Andrew, the couple who's staying in the cabin. So to see these people like, not break in, but break in, I guess they did break into the cabin and tie these people up and do these malicious acts, but have such sympathy behind them is sort of something that you don't see anymore. Because most of the time when you watch like Netflix crime documentaries, it's like, yeah, no, I meant to kill those people. I meant to tie them up. And they're not remorseful about it in any way. The script does a good job humanizing him, I guess is the best way to put it. Because you find out that Leonard is a second grade teacher, and who is it? Adrian is a line cook with a young son. Sabrina is a nurse, and Redmond sucks. Bottom line. But like even he's going to rehab. He's trying to turn his life around in some capacity. So I think the script does a good job with with creating the antagonists, I guess you could call them. But yeah, 100% Dave Bautista took the ball and ran with it, and nobody even came close to taking it from him. To your point that you made about cinematography, I noticed a lot of close-up shots similar to how they did in Old. I don't know if you remember, but in Old, and I think in Old it was more of a way to prevent the audience from seeing the lack of any special effects, because obviously like they didn't have four different actors for the same character that was getting older, especially the children.
Yeah.
So just have like this part of somebody's face is like, yeah, okay, maybe they're getting older. Yeah, maybe they're still 12 years old. So I feel like maybe he found it in that movie and then just brought it over here and said, "Hey, that's pretty cool. Looks nice." So, I mean, that's fine. Probably one of my favorite parts was the weapon design.
Mhm.
Absolutely gnarly. Like one of them is a pitchfork. So you have like the pitchfork, and then over here you have like an axe head coming out.
Right. And I
Oh,
said, I whispered to Andrew in the middle of the movie, I'm like, wow, pretty cool weapon. I've never seen or thought of that before. So,
it's so cool. And it's so practical too. I mean, Dave Bautista uses it to
right.
perfection, really. One of the things that not really rubbed me the wrong way, but sort of caught me off guard was obviously at the end of the movie, I believe it was Eric that died.
Um, yes.
Yeah, right? Eric.
I, 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 this is, this is what I'm saying. Like Batista literally stole the show. Like literally everyone took like two back seats. So that's what I'm saying. Like,
Yes.
Eric and Andrew, you could argue were the main characters, but they really weren't, in my
Yeah.
opinion. But yeah, it
Confirmation, it was Eric
was Eric.
that
Okay.
died. So the thing that I thought of is obviously the apocalypse was real and they stopped the apocalypse by killing Eric, right? But does it undermine the whole plot line of the movie if the guy who ended up believing the apocalypse theory was the same guy who got hit with a severe concussion at the beginning of the film?
It's a great point.
Because like
Elaborate.
would it have felt more impactful if the sane, for lack of a better term, person in Andrew was the one to believe the apocalypse theory?
Right.
Because it feels like it feeds into the shared delusion theory that Andrew had about the four doomsayers at one point of like, oh well, look at Eric, he just got severe head trauma and now he believes in the apocalypse.
Right.
So I don't know. I mean, that's like the only problem that I have with the script, because otherwise it does such a phenomenal job at building and holding tension throughout the entire runtime. Like,
Yeah.
personally, I'm surprised that they could make a movie that holds your attention for that long about the topic that they did. Because if you watch the trailer, it feels like that topic will run out in 20 minutes. And then
Mhm.
what's the rest of the movie about? But no, this script sticks to its guns the entire time. And it really, as much as cliche as it is, it really keeps you on the edge of your seat until, they pull into the diner in the last 2 minutes.
Right. That's a good point. And thinking about when you think of it, like there was really not like a plot need or a story, story wise need to give Eric like a concussion because I get what you're saying. Like it's at first, like even if you never gave him a concussion, he was just, I guess, sane and all there and not, suffering from head trauma of getting his head slammed on the wooden floor. Um, it still would have been, I think, cool and unique to kind of have the couple sort of see and have different perspectives as they have and kind of be arguing with one another and kind of getting in unintentionally, the situation pinning them against each other.
Yeah.
But it's almost like it does sort of undermine to answer your question, giving him a concussion, being like, well, maybe if he wasn't concussed, he would have thought differently about the whole situation and wouldn't, maybe he thought he saw something in the sunlight reflection that he says in the movie that he saw and kind of gave him this. vision, that
Yeah.
this is happening.
And I mean, maybe giving him the concussion and then having him see the figure in the sunlight is sort of a way of conveying to the audience of, well, did he really see it or was it the concussion?
Right.
But I don't know. I'm not, and I don't know if I have an answer to this question either, even though I'm the one asking it. I just think that it's like, you have these things in the plot, like, well, did he see the figure in the light? Well, did they really get through to him, or was he just concussed? But then the payoff of having him being the one that believes it because of the concussion, I don't think really warrants the means didn't justify the ends to me, if that makes sense. Like, I think it would have been just as fine to not have him get a concussion
Right.
and then just have, the two of them in a sane manner arguing this conversation or having this conversation throughout the movie. But otherwise, as a bit of tension, as a thriller film, I think the script was fantastic.
Totally.
So yeah, I mean, like, do you have anything, like, as I said, I thought the movie was fine. I enjoyed it. I don't think it's like groundbreaking, but do you have anything else to say about like cinematically before we move into themes? Because I've got a whole page of themes.
No, I mean, it would, like I said, I think that the plot was very, very simple, but also the other thing I mentioned a lot is uniqueness and a creativity type of thing, and not, as we always say, we're kind of in a cinema era of, nostalgia based films, right? So this, I think, was just, I know it was based off a book, but it was an original thought, and something completely new and completely unique, that I've ever seen or read. So always, if it can pay off, and it again keeps me intrigued, keeps my interest, and is really just a good film, good acting, good cinematography, all that. And especially, I think the best thing like this film had, that I said earlier, was just the tone throughout, just the tension, keeping you on the edge of your seat.
Mhm.
All those things to me kind of make it a great movie. And it's definitely one of, I think, again, it still could be recency bias, but in my opinion, definitely one of his top films that I've seen.
Yeah, I liked it. I liked it. It's probably not my favorite M. Night Shyamalan movie.
Mhm.
I'd probably reserve that for Unbreakable, but that's a conversation for another day. Want a break from the ads? Subscribe to Cellar Dwellers Productions on YouTube. The ads won't go away, but you'll see more great content like this. So yeah, if we want to just like transition into themes here, couple of influential movies I picked up on was obviously the, as I said, tongue-in-cheek Evil Dead, Cabin in the Middle of the Woods. Then again, like, it doesn't have to be, because Cabin in the Middle of the Woods is such a regular horror trope,
Right.
that you can just make it and say, no, 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 Evil Dead didn't inspire me. That's just what I picked up on. I don't know if that's actually true, like if they use that as inspiration, but I think the cabin burned down at the end of the Evil Dead remake, if I remember correctly. I don't think it burned down at the end of one, or did it?
Not in the original.
Okay, so it must be the remake I'm thinking of, which is very good. If you haven't seen it, please go watch it. The other one, which I think is kind of an interesting one that sparked my memory, is Texas Chainsaw Massacre, 1974. Because this film, Knock at the Cabin, really did not go into the gore at all. Like, obviously, you saw some blood here and there, but if you noticed, every time somebody died, it would happen off camera,
Yes.
and you would only see remnants of the aftermath. So, say, for example, like when Leonard slit his throat, the camera was over here and kept moving down, and not until it was over here below his throat did you hear the slicing and see the blood come down. Or like when Redmond, when they, right in his head, it was always from outside the cabin, or nobody saw it. And
You just heard the thuds and saw the.
yeah, And I think partially that may have been to preserve the sanctity of the thriller and keep it more of a thriller than a horror movie
Mhm.
by staying away from the blood and gore, which is totally fine. Don't get me wrong. But then you think back to something like Old, right? And Old was really disgusting at times. Like,
Mhm.
I think back specifically to The Lady in the Cave. Do you remember that one?
That was yes, seen that
Disgusting, right? It was gross.
guard in your head.
So I don't know, maybe they're just trying something new. M. Night Shyamalan and his team of filmmakers. Maybe they're just trying to see how much implied horror they can put into the audience's mind, because sometimes, as I'm sure you know, implied horror is scarier to the viewer than
Definitely.
straight in your face.
I think gore, it's in my opinion, when it's used in horror, I think less is more. And to be fair, going into this movie, I wasn't really like anticipating it being like a heavy gore, bloody type of film. I saw,
Yeah.
I You shook your head there, but
I'm a
it's
gore hound. You know that.
well, you definitely are. So that's just my opinion. But like you just said, like implied horror, I think does more. Like when you obviously know what's happening, you just can't see it on screen. Like it's still does the job than seeing someone get all
Totally.
up, and
Totally.
because then that can go like one of two ways. Like it can look like really realistic, like holy shit, there's blood and gore and bone and intestines and all that, or it's like that looks totally fake. That like and then it just becomes a distractor and then it
Yeah.
ruins.
You're right. It's a very fine line. And I understand gore is not for everybody. But, when it's used correctly, when I watch a movie like Terrifier,
Right.
I'm wide-eyed in amazement
Yeah,
sometimes.
totally. When it looks realistic, it's when it's at its best
Yes.
used. But yeah, going into this movie, like I don't know about you, I wasn't really anticipating a lot of blood and gore. I kind of knew
No, no, neither was I.
other than a horror movie. So like I wasn't at all disappointed. I thought how all the kills, all the sacrifices throughout the movie, how they were planned and made and designed and shot, I thought were fit the tone of the movie and the theme and the flow of the movie very well. Um,
Yeah. Even when the Doomsayers showed a high level of reluctance to killing each other, um, they had a reluctance when they were swinging their weapons and talking about it. And again, that just goes back to how the script humanizes the antagonists to a certain point. That's very, very relatable for a common moviegoer. So with M. Night Shyamalan, I know you mentioned Signs all the time, having like a really heavy religious undertone to it. And this one I think is the same, because obviously there is some level of higher power that tells the doomsayers to come down and do these things, or else the apocalypse will be ushered in. It's never specified what higher power that is, whether it be like Christianity, Judaism, Catholicism, whatever. And it doesn't matter, honestly. It really doesn't. I know you and I, well, in the movie, first of all, one of the two guys, Eric or Andrew, say that they're the four horsemen of the apocalypse. And I have some notes on that as well. We noticed the number seven a lot.
mhm.
Um, there were seven people in the house. There were seven grasshoppers, as you said, in captivity. And there were seven knocks at the door, as I found. And when you're making a film, what you choose to include is sometimes just as important as what you choose not to include. So they could have had any number of knocks at that door. They could have had any number of grasshoppers in captivity. So clearly, a number seven has some sort of significance. I mean, your guess is as good as mine as to what they are. Obviously, I think the go-to for a lot of people are the deadly sins, but again, that's like if you try hard enough, you can attribute the seven deadly sins to almost anything
Right.
with the number seven. There are the seven virtues, the seven corporal works of mercy, the seven spiritual works of mercy, the seven seals of God, which I'm leaning more towards.
Right.
However, those are all in Catholicism, and I only do that because my knowledge of religion, limited as it may be, is rooted in Catholicism as well.
Mhm.
But what do you think about like Four Horsemen of the Apocalypse kind of thing? Because I think they all represent the good, but the horsemen represent obviously the bad that will destroy the world.
Yeah, so that was, I think, almost like maybe some of the writers didn't do their homework on what the actual tale, what the actual meaning of the Four Horsemen is. Just I guess like you kind of say it, and just general knowledge of that is the Four Horsemen are, four individuals that come to warn about the impending apocalypse. So I think it's kind of just a simplistic take on it. Um, but yeah, I definitely think this movie, as a lot of other M. Night Shyamalan films, like I said, the whole purpose of Signs is not about an alien invasion. It's about faith. That's the whole plot of the movie. You'll definitely agree once you watch it.
Yeah, sure.
A lot of other movies, he does throw some religious things in there. I'm pretty sure he is himself Catholic or some type of Protestant
I
denomination.
think he grew up Catholic. I don't know if he still holds those beliefs now, but
But yeah, I definitely think, if you ask me, I think the number seven, I think was more so like intended than I think the Four Horsemen, because they never really explain or get into the Four Horsemen. They're just like, oh, the four people came, and they're just like the Four Horsemen. Like they don't really explain in depth what they actually are. Where if you're paying attention, looking for, I guess, unintentional but intentional things, as you said earlier, with like the seven knocks, the seven individuals that are in the main part of the film, and the seven grasshoppers, I think there was some, religious significance, in it. And also too, um, a lot of stuff, a lot of vibes I kind of got about this was sort of like the book of Revelations, like meaning, the end times, like,
well, which is where the Four Horsemen come from.
right. So that was a lot of my thinking, knowing, M. Night Shyamalan's religious background. So um of people kind of warning of impending, danger, impending doom, and really just the apocalypse. And it's interesting that um, you know no one really ever mentioned like the type of religion or God or even Jesus or anyone, who
Mhm.
kind of gave them the visions. They just all had like the same visions, and found each other. Um, so yeah, it's definitely, I think, up to debate how much um, religious themes were intended in the movie, but I definitely think, between the significance of the number seven and whole ideal of the apocalypse and the Four Horsemen, those are all obvious. So I'm sure there are other ones too if you go back and watch the film.
Yeah. You ready for me to blow your mind?
Yeah.
Okay. So this was about an hour or two of Wikipedia diving. So forgive me if anything is a little off kilter. So the Four Horsemen of the Apocalypse, in many denominations and many interpretations, are death, famine, war, and pestilence. Okay. Now, if you go off of I should say, this is all my own speculation purely. Like none of this is set in stone at all. If you go off the four personalities of the doomsayers, you could make the argument that their personalities and their life goals fit the opposites of the four horsemen,
Hmm.
right? So you have pestilence. Opposite of that could be health, which is Sabrina, who's a nurse.
Yep.
She's meant to heal people. You have war, obviously, opposite is peace, who is Redmond, who's going through rehabilitation because he beats people up in bars. You have famine, the opposite is feast. You have Adrian, who works as a line cook and sees food and feeding people as her life's mission. And you have death, who I attributed to life, which is Leonard, because he is a second grade teacher and a basketball coach. And he finds that the most rewarding part of his job is to cultivate the younger generations and make sure that they live up to something greater than he could be.
Yep.
In the book of Revelations, there are the 7 seals of God, which have to be broken to unleash the apocalypse. And each of the first 4 seals that are broken releases a horseman of the apocalypse. They come in on the horses, and one's like the white horse, and he's sword, and he kills nations, and it's war or whatever. I forget the exact descriptions. My idea was that everything in this film, in terms of the characters, works either as an antithesis or it works in reverse. So you have the 4 characters that are the 4 horsemen of the apocalypse, yet the opposite of the horsemen.
Right.
And it requires all 7 of those people, the participants of all 7, to close the book on the apocalypse and put the apocalypse away. Instead of ushering it in, they get rid of it.
Right.
So at the end of the film, it was either Eric or Andrew that says, I think it was Eric, before he dies, says that they're the 4 horsemen of the apocalypse. And I'm paraphrasing, but they needed to be there to show Eric and Andrew the virtues of humanity again. The good side, which is the life, feast, peace, and health, rather than death, famine, war, pestilence. I think that the horseman thing isn't just a face value comparison, because when the horsemen come, the apocalypse comes. But in this case, when these horsemen came, the apocalypse goes away.
Yeah.
Could be totally wrong. That's just what the Wikipedia dive popped in my head.
Oh, that makes a lot of sense, and I think definitely could be. I mean, that just from the standpoint of the 4 of them, their 4 backgrounds, their 4 professions, all that. That definitely explains, like how you were saying, they're the complete opposite of the four horsemen. They're trying to prevent the apocalypse rather than bring it upon everybody.
I think like once we figure that out, then the movie becomes a lot more fun. I do want to watch it again because I'm not sure if there actually was a figure in the light or if it was just the light itself. I do feel like this film would be a good one to watch again, because M. Night Shyamalan usually puts things in like the background or and his cameo was fantastic, by the way. Making the chicken on the TV shopping network.
Yeah.
That one was really you and I were like the only ones laughing though.
Right. Yeah.
I don't know why.
I don't think anybody knows that M. Night Shyamalan's in all his movies.
Oh man, that was one of the best parts of the movie. Seriously. Yeah, I mean, I think I've said my piece. Like I said, I thought the movie was fine.
Definitely worth a trip to the movies, and like I agree, I definitely want to watch it again because I'm sure there's a lot of stuff I missed, and I want to try to, as you said, try to see that figure that was in the light, because that's something that I definitely missed, because I was definitely paying attention at that scene, but I couldn't really see much. It was like just literally a shot of glaring sunlight. So
Yeah, me too. But yeah, I think the movie holds a little bit more merit structurally than at entertainment face value, although I did really enjoy it. I know it's a little bit of a shorter one, but yeah, catch Cabin in the Woods, Evil Dead, Knock at the Cabin. And thanks for watching. Tell your grandma, dog walker, mailman, and
Aiden, of course.
And Aiden. That's right. That's it from us. Until next time, we've been the Cellar Dwellers.
There you go.